Assemblymember Twycross.
Your housing strategy outlines a number of interventions you're taking to tackle homelessness on London streets. Meanwhile, however, the Minister for Homelessness claims not to know why homelessness has increased across the UK. How much can you deliver on your strategy when the government has got such a lack of understanding of the issue?
I was surprised by what she said. I'm hoping she was misinterpreted or she may have misspoke. We all have those days. But there are a number of reasons why there is homelessness, rough sleeping problem in London. But what surprised me was the impression given of a lack of the government understanding the root causes of homelessness. I'm not sure how you can address the issue without understanding the root causes, whether it's changes in welfare benefits, whether it's the chronic shortage of homes that are affordable being provided, whether it's the cuts in services, health services and other services needed by people who end up being rough sleepers or homeless, or the cost and insecurity of private rented accommodation that Leonie referred to. It does worry us going forward, bearing in mind in the 8 years before I became mayor, homelessness, rough sleeping doubled from 2008 to 2016. The sort of bit of good news is last year in 16-17 it plateaued, the increase stopped going up, and we're hoping when we see the figures that we've seen, continue at that plateau, or maybe a reduction, because it is a worry, but we can't do it by ourselves. We need government assistance.
No, and in your strategy you talk about putting pressure on the government to address the root causes of homelessness. What specific channels will you use to do this?
Well, James is on a working group with the government who meet regularly, so do you want to give an update on that?
Sure, yeah. So the government are producing a rough sleeping strategy at the moment, and what they've done is got an advisory panel, which is I attend on behalf of the Mayor from London. There's also people from sort of Manchester, other regional interests represented, charities and so on. And it is a private meeting, so it wouldn't be right for me to tell you everything we say there in a public forum. But I have made very clear the view from London, which is that any strategy which fails to acknowledge the root causes of homelessness and rough sleeping is going to fail in identifying really why this problem has been increasing in recent years. It's very welcome if we get extra money which can help us provide services here, but without fundamentally acknowledging the decisions which have been taken over the last 8 years and the role that they have played through an active decision or through inaction in contributing to rough sleeping, the strategy will have a big hole in it.
Great, thank you. And obviously there's quite a few good examples of best practice from some of the boroughs in London in terms of trying to tackle the root causes of rough sleeping and homelessness. How will you make sure that we get best practice from boroughs shared across London to offer a pan-London approach?
Sure. Very soon after we took office, the Mayor asked me to convene a task force of the boroughs most affected by rough sleeping and key charities who work in rough sleeping in London. I'll come to homelessness more generally in a second, but if I start just with rough sleeping. And so that's the boroughs who you'd expect, Westminster, Camden, other places where they have very high levels of rough sleeping. And so the point of that task force, it meets every 6 months, but in between the meetings, there are various different subgroups who meet much more frequently. So the idea is that there's constantly various different work streams going on to involve everyone. And a big part of that is to share best practice. So for instance, Tower Hamlets doing a lot of work on the no first night out, trying to do more prevention for rough sleeping. A lot of the learnings from that being shared via this task force and via the links that it has with other boroughs around London. In terms of homelessness more widely, we're also trying to work with different councils and with London councils as an organisation to coordinate councils' efforts in that regard. That is harder because essentially it comes down to councils procuring private rented housing for homeless households. And there's no getting away from it. The problem is the cost. That's what makes it so difficult. What we have jointly funded is some work with London councils to try and coordinate their procurement more so that boroughs have less risk of competing against each other, which would only serve to push up the prices to no one's benefit apart from the landlord. So we have helped them to try and do that. But there is no getting away from it that when it comes to homelessness and finding the temporary accommodation for those households, it's the cost and the welfare system's ability or inability to meet those costs, which is the primary concern.
Thank you.